What happens when someone has an encounter they can't explain and no one they can safely tell? Today, we're exploring the human side of UFO contact on the Radiate Wellness podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christi Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Hello, and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness podcast. I am your host, Christi Clemens Hoffman, Level 3 Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique Practitioner, Reiki Master, and Spiritual Intuitive based in the beautiful Kansas City area. Now, in this episode of the podcast, we speak with Les Velez, who is the author of The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact, with a foreword by Linda Moulton Howe. Yes, that Linda Moulton Howe. Now, Les Velez is a graduate of the University of Vermont with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. Beginning in September of 1970, he served in the U.S. Army as a field artillery officer and was later vice president of Luscombe Engineering, a Silicon Valley-based manufacturer's representative company. He joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, in 1991 and has held the following positions: field investigator, training coordinator for field investigators, the assistant state director in Northern California, chairman of the AERC or Abduction Experiencer Research Committee, and team leader of the ART, Abduction Response Team. Also, during that time, he became a facilitator for an abduction support group in San Jose, California. And in 1994, co-founded OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. Now, with all of the talk about disclosure and UFOs in the news these days, you can see how this topic is very relevant and very present, very now. So I think you're going to enjoy it. But before we get too much further, I have my standard asks of you that I put out there every episode. So first of all, please, if you have not already, like, subscribe, follow this episode, but also this podcast in general. If you are listening right now, and I know you are, please find that button on whatever platform that you are using at this time. Next, if you would share this podcast, tell your network about it. You know people who are interested in UFOs, who are interested in all of the practices that we talk about with Radiate Wellness, who you are interested in authors and consciousness. So you'll definitely want to share this podcast and these episodes. And then finally, if you are in a position to do so, please write us a little review, maybe give us 5 stars, a thumbs up, maybe 5 words of how much you like our content and how helpful you find it to be. A little goes a long way, actually, to boost us in the algorithms so we have more listeners who can suggest more guests. Also, if you've not already, please listen to the Real Life Angel Encounters podcast. That is the other podcast that I host, and it is on the mindbodyspirit.fm network. You won't want to miss that. It's real people like you who share their positive, uplifting, and mysterious stories. Lastly, in the show notes, you will find a link to make a donation to the show. Now, this show is always going to be free to you to listen to. That is my commitment to you. We will never ask for a subscription or anything like that. It's always going to be free. However, I do have costs that come right out of my own pocket for editing, for hosting, and for advertising, and for the graphics. So all of that does add up. If you can spare a couple of bucks, use the link in the show notes. That's it. I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you or someone you know has had an alien contact experience, an extraterrestrial contact experience, actually, then please get in touch with MUFON or OPUS and get support, because it's difficult to know who to talk to about this, and you definitely want to be supported. All right, that's it. On with the show. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast, where today we radiate support with Les Velez, who is involved with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, as well as OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. Welcome, Les. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
I've been excited about this because, just marginally involved with MUFON. I go to some meetings and things like that and follow it. But I work a lot with people who have had sightings and have had encounters. And so this is important. And I feel like your work with Opus to support people who've had these encounters is very important. How many people do you work with Opus?
There's various levels of how we operate. People have access to our support group, which is an online confidential support group. And we have almost 400 people now from around the world that are communicating on a 24/7 basis, telling their stories, asking questions. And this has proved to be one of the most important things that we have set up. But then we also have a referral network of mental health practitioners, hypnotherapists, psychotherapists to work with these people that come to us and that need something beyond a support group. And then the latest thing is that we have a group called the EST, the Experiencer Support Team, that basically does triage. They're very well versed in a lot of the phenomena with regard to the paranormal. And so when these people come to us, they are able to chat with them and find out, what kind of needs that they have.
That is so important because people who've had these experiences, they don't want to feel like they're crazy. They sometimes don't even know who they can reach out to and who they can talk to.
Well, exactly right. I mean, these experiences are quite traumatic. It's certainly the first phases of these contacts with non-human intelligences. And so oftentimes they feel that they are going crazy. And then they eventually go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and they find out, in fact, that they're not crazy. So then what? What do they do? Because they can't talk in many cases to family members. They can't talk to coworkers. They can't talk to clergy because of the fear of being ridiculed and being thought of as being crazy. They're between a rock and a hard place. And when I started in MUFON in 1991, I started to get the journal on a monthly basis and then found out that that wasn't quite enough for me. And I became an investigator. And almost without exception, the cases that I investigated were not only sightings, but people were telling me that they had contact with non-human intelligences.
Absolutely fascinating. I dream of having that type of contact one day, although it terrifies me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had gone many years ago to a conscious channeler and asked them the question like, "Will I ever have contact?" And they mentioned that it would probably be at a high mountain lake, which actually I used to camp at a high mountain lake. And then I asked the question, if I'm contacted, should I get on board the craft? And she said to me, she says, "Well, you have to go with your gut on that. If you feel comfortable, fine. If not, then run away." That's something that I chew on a little bit to see if I would actually get on board a craft. People have had positive experiences with that, and then a lot of people have had negative experiences being on board a craft and being abducted or having contact, as they say. So there's a lot to this phenomenon. It's not just that aspect. I mean, people talk about the fact that they come into contact with these short little aliens called grays. Also, beyond that, people are being contacted or in contact with orbs, these basically like light beings, if you will. And then interdimensionals are mentioned very often, and then poltergeist activity. And all of these things are part of an incredible puzzle that we don't have all the answers. I don't even know if we have any, to tell you the truth. But when these people have had experiences, they often come back with physical issues or marks on their body or implants and things of that nature. And then also people have been abducted in groups and with a spouse so that there's corroboration of the fact that they've had some kind of an experience. And so when these things happen, it's quite traumatic and they come away with various things going on. Some people come back with the ability to heal, come back with psychic abilities. So it's, as the old saying goes, once you start going down that rabbit hole, It gets very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Goodness. So how did you get involved with this? How did you get
Yeah.
MUFON?
Yeah. Well, when I was 11 years old, we have to go way back. This is when I was living in Connecticut, and it was late October evening, and I was coming back in the house after feeding my dog. I noticed this object hovering over a tree line, totally silent, sort of oval in shape and kind of a whitish, silverish type of a coloration. And it was slowly moving and scared the hell out of me. And so I ran in the house and tried to get my father to come out. And by the time I convinced him to come out, it had disappeared. And he said, well, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud or something. Well, I did not buy that. And shortly thereafter, I went to the library and picked up some books on UFOs. And at the time, George Adamski was the big UFO guy at the time. He wrote many books and talked about his contact with the Venusians. Anyway, but after a while, life got in the way. Girls became a little bit more important in my life and eventually went off to college and got married and settled in Connecticut. And I had this opportunity to move out to California to go into business out there. And so we did. We moved out and picked up the San Jose Mercury News one day. And a gentleman by the name of Stanton Freeman, who was a nuclear physicist, was going to talk about UFOs and the government cover up. So I went to San Jose City College to expected to see a handful of people there, but the auditorium was packed. He gave one of his inimitable presentations, and on my way out, MUFON had a table in the foyer. And so that's where I found out that they had a monthly journal, and so I started to get that. But after a while, that wasn't enough for me, and so I became a field investigator. And as I said earlier, that the cases, almost without exception, turned out to be not only sightings, but people saying that they had contact with non-human intelligences. Then these people said, well, do I know of other people? And I said, yes, I do. And the next thing happens is that I'm facilitating a support group in my office in San Jose. And that went on for a number of years. And one day, a person had contacted, a newspaper person had contacted MUFON, and this gentleman was a writer for the Monterey Coast Weekly paper. And so he contacted MUFON headquarters and asked if he could interview somebody close to him. And so headquarters gave him my name. He came out, did an interview, took my picture and everything, and wrote up this article. And shortly thereafter, I got a call from a woman down in Carmel saying that she wanted to know what was going on with her brain when she was in contact with these off-earthly entities. So I said to myself, I have no idea how I could possibly help this person. And then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor in Carmel. And I had a doctor friend that was very interested in meeting other doctors interested in the phenomena. So I called him up and I said, Eugene, and this is the co-founder of the OPUS organization, Eugene Lipson, unfortunately passed away there recently. So I said, let's go down there. Let's just go check this out, see what this is all about. So we went down there. And as we walked into her home, there was a picture on the wall. And it was her standing on the back of a rather large vessel in beautiful crystal blue water. And I'm saying, oh, what's this all about? Being curious. And she says, oh, yeah, I was down there helping these treasure hunters. I said, how were you helping the treasure hunters? She says, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had sunk. And so that started off the afternoon. And then she proceeded to tell us things about ourselves that there was no possible way that she would know. She became very psychic after a near-death experience that she had. And so that afternoon was just an amazing event, all the things that came up about us and her. And we came away from that meeting saying, okay, how can we possibly help people like this? And that's when Opus was hatched. And then in 1994, we officially became a nonprofit organization, 501(c), recognized by the IRS. It's been quite a trip. Over the years, we've helped a lot of different people, and we have a website that people can contact us through, opusnetwork.org. And it's something that has been, as I say, helpful for many, many people. And we're always looking to try to upgrade what we're doing. As a matter of fact, we're in the process right now of upgrading our website as well, which should be even more helpful in the future.
How is it that you do help people?
Well, what we do, as I mentioned, when people contact us, usually through our website, okay, there's a contact button on there, or a support button, I should say. We ask for very little information, basically your name, your email address, and then tell us what it is you want. We give them 2 choices. Do you wanna be put into the online support group, or do you wanna have an EST member contact you? And then they tell us our story, and then we ask their age when these things happened and their sex, whether you're a male or a female. And after that information comes into us, then depending upon what they request, we either put them into the support group based on what their write up was. But usually what happens is that the member of the EST contacts them first to ascertain what it is that they're really looking for. And if they want the support group, fine, we put them in there. But the important part is if they're looking for a referral, and then that EST member can give them information on a local contact for them, whether it's a mental health practitioner or a hypnotherapist or something along those lines.
And again, EST stands for?
Experience or support team.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow. Okay, so sometimes you refer them to a mental health practitioner. Why is that?
Well, a lot of times these people are interested in understanding a little bit more. And so they go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and want to delve into a little bit more thoroughly from a medical aspect what's going on with them. And of course, we don't do that ourselves. So we don't have that capability. And so we send them to mental health professionals that are familiar with this topic, which is very important. And we're trying to bring on more of these people to help and then to also educate them in the phenomena and give them the kind of detail that they need to do the kind of job that they need to do with these people.
Mhm, mhm. Do you ever find that people are contacting you and maybe they haven't had that experience or maybe there's a mental health issue going on?
Yeah, and again, over the years working with these people, you do come to understand that there are people that definitely need to go directly, do not pass go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But it's very few over the years. I could probably count on one hand how many people that we've basically strongly suggested that they first go to a psychiatrist or psychologist
Right.
and make sure that there's not a more important issue going on, if you will. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I would imagine that somebody who has a mental health issue might not seek out an organization like yours. They just want to tell people whoever they can find. But I don't know. I could be wrong about that. What type of experiences are most typical among people who contact you?
There's a common thread through all these experiences. There's a sighting, and then there might be missing time. And they tell the story about waking up on a table in an enclosure which has rounded areas in it, and they're probed and pushed, and all kinds of fluid is taken. In the case of male, sperm is taken. Females, the eggs are taken. And so there's a real common thread through a lot of this thing, but each individual experience is a little different. Recently published a book a couple of years ago now that called The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. And in that book, I talk about a case where this couple, they're amateur pilots, they were picnicking in a state park near Santa Cruz, California. And they were coming out of the park at dusk. And this is a rather hilly area just close to the ocean, and it goes up into the mountains. And they were coming out and they saw a light over the ocean, and it just caught their eye. And this light got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was over their head. And it was a triangular craft about the size of a small Learjet. And so they watched this thing go past them into this canyon behind where they were. And they noticed another light over the ocean. Same scenario. This craft was over their heads. The first one, they felt they were looking at it. The second craft, they felt it was looking at them, and they became concerned at this point. And this happened 5 more times. And then it was like they felt like they were kind of floating, they were kind of robotic in nature and going, and I went up to see where this was with them, and this path going out of there is hard to traverse even daylight, but at night, I mean, this is already getting dark, and they just seemed to float down to their car where it was, and then 3 hours later, they're in this restaurant. They have no idea how they got there, and this restaurant's only like 5 to 10 minutes away from where the park was, and 3 hours of missing time. What happened? And they came to one of the support group meetings, and they had developed a rash after this incident. Now there's poison oak up in that area, so they figured, well, maybe it's poison oak or poison ivy. And the doctor that they went to said, no, it's not, but I'm not sure what it is. So I guess they both had different doctors. So they went to his first, I guess, and then hers second. And he says, well, maybe it's something internal that's causing that. And so they had taken a picture of this thing and they showed it around to the people in the support group. And almost without exception, every one of the people in the group said at one time or another they had that same kind of a rash. And so one of the people in the support group says, I think I know what that's from. And so we're sitting there, oh, okay, please do tell us. And it's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in when they bring you on board the craft to sanitize you. So that was quite a revelation. And the meetings, there was always some kind of a very interesting thing brought up like that. So you get little bits and pieces of information. And in the book, I talk about all the aspects of the phenomena, whether you're talking about implants, whether you're talking about hybrids, the sperm and eggs are being blended with the alien DNA to create these hybrid people. I don't know if you're familiar with a book by Helen Luttrell called Rachel's Eyes.
Mhm.
This is a fascinating book about her daughter. Helen Luttrell's daughter had gone to school with a hybrid in Humboldt College in Northern California. She looked very different. The military would deliver food to her, specialized food, because she couldn't eat normal food. And so that book, matter of fact, the person that did the hypnosis on Helen for a lot of the story is a member of our board. And we have some really good people on our board and people in our advisory committee. Linda Moulton Howe is on our advisory committee. Yvonne Smith is on our advisory committee. And Melinda Leslie, Terry Lovelace. It's a really good group of people that have a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas. And then we also do research. And back in 2007, this is before MUFON had any real organizational setup to work with people that claim that they've been abducted or had an experience with non-human intelligences. So I talked to the international director, James Carrion, at that time, and I said, you're missing a lot by not working with people like that. And so I offered to them that OPUS could work with MUFON. And I started to get all the phone calls that were coming in to MUFON, and I started to help these people through MUFON.
Mhm.
And also during that time, they came to me and said, look, we'd like to have some research done. And would you head that up? And I said, yes, I would. And so we produced a document called the Omega-3 study, where we took 71 people that claimed that they had contact with non-human intelligences and 51 people as a control group. And basically, we gave them 9 different psychological instruments to analyze and to answer the questions from these psychological various things that are important to understanding the person fully. And so let me just read you what our conclusion was. In general, abductees experiences profile differently than do their comparison counterparts on a number of general psychological and specific neurological variables, yet there are remarkable similarities between the experiential group and the comparison group. It should be noted that in no case did experiencers or comparison group participants show any signs of mental illness or personality disorder. Okay. Fantasy proneness does not appear to play a differentiating role between the experiential and control groups. However, sensitivity to alternative realities and early recurrent paranormal or psi experiences seem to play a role in the abduction experience. Childhood conflict, psychosocial tension, and abuse and trauma more than likely facilitated dissociative coping style in later life. Both experience with and interest in the abduction phenomena have an impact on how one's body is perceived to function and how one views the world. And these people all would come back with these really positive feelings about the fact that we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to be better to one another. We need to be more loving. So the majority of these people, a high percentage, eventually had positive experiences. And what I believe is happening here is a spiritual journey. This is an awakening of our spirit, not in a religious sense, but a sense that we just need to be respectful. We need to be loving and care about people and the planet. So it always blew my mind every time I read these conclusions that the majority of the things seem to be positive. And one of the things that people ask about, what are the goals of these entities that are interfacing with us. And it says one of the things we found also that the goals of these entities seem to be more beneficent than benevolent, more benign than malignant. So it's fascinating. And now we're working on the Omega 4 study where we went out to the mental health community,
Mhm.
had them do a survey. We're going out to the hypnotherapists, having them do a survey, and then we're eventually gonna be actually utilizing their mental health practitioners' client base, have them do a survey, and we finished the first part of the survey and came up with the fact that most people that are having these experiences, number 1 group is the grays. Then you have orbs. Then you have interdimensionals, and then you have poltergeist. And so this is an interesting mixture. And then we also analyzed how these practitioners, what did they utilize to help these people? And so what we're doing here is when we bring on somebody, a new therapist, mental health practitioner, is we provide them with that analysis. And there's charts and graphs and all this kind of stuff to educate them on what these people are seeing. And for hypnotherapists, we recommend EMDR or QHHT type of modality to work with these people.
I'm a QHHT practitioner.
Mm, okay, and that's one of the top ones that we recommend.
I was going to ask you about that. How would someone become a hypnosis
I
practitioner?
am glad you asked that question. You all you do, you just contact us, hit the contact button and say that you'd like to, and we'll send you a questionnaire. And we'll take a look at the questionnaire when it comes back and send you a little note saying you're in, and then we'll put you on the list. And then
Fantastic.
if yeah, and then if somebody in your we try to get people close because we really like it when you can be face to face
Oh,
as opposed to Zoom. I mean, yeah, when COVID hit, I mean, a lot of people went to that because they had to, but we much prefer to have it one-on-one in the same room, just
yeah.
in case somebody gets freaked out, and so you need to be able to bring them back, okay.
Yeah, yes, or in case the electricity or Wi-Fi goes out.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you don't wanna be stranded.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
in QHHT, I must stress, must be done in person.
yeah,
Fascinating. Do you happen to know about a documentary called Alien Abduction Answers?
yeah, I saw it.
Yeah,
I was out in San Francisco with Yost, and,
yeah,
I gave him a copy of my book, and that was good. It was good.
it was
It was
good.
good.
Yeah, well, Debs, who was the hypnosis practitioner, she's been on my show before.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah, she's a dear friend of mine. And, speaking of really awesome people, Linda Moulton Howe actually wrote the foreword for your book.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, she's been a longtime friend, very, very long time. I met her in Albuquerque, at a MUFON symposium a bazillion years ago.
Wow, that is amazing. So I have some more questions for you.
Sure.
Uh, what do you think is going on? What are we dealing with regarding these alien encounters?
I think that could be a couple of things, okay, and again, I have no solid answer because I haven't been able to sit down with an alien and ask him the question, but what people are saying that have had contact is that in a lot of cases, these things are especially in the case of the hybridization process, it's something that they need to do to be able to survive, to propagate their race because they can't do it themselves now, they have to have our help.
I have to interject here. What is going on with these alien races that they can't propagate themselves?
Well, in the case of most of these, certainly the Greys, which seem to be a biological robotic entity of some sort,
Mm.
that they certainly don't have any genitalia. And as far as the reptilians or the mantid type of creatures, which race is the one that's having the issue? Well, it seems to be the Greys, the tall Greys, the short Greys.
Ask which grays in particular, yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're the ones that seem to be needing that kind of assistance. But it's often said that the mantid type aliens seem to be like in charge of everything. And there's cases as far as the reptilians are concerned where people have had negative experiences. Some people have had positive experiences.
Fun.
The Nordics, that's a whole nother ballgame that, you always see them pictured with a male and a female and they're great looking. They're really good looking people. And, you would assume that they don't have an issue in that regard. So the constant entity that's always seems to be involved are the small grays. And I always look at it as the fact that all these other races seem to utilize the grace to bring a person on board or to abduct them. And there must be like this universal store out there. It's like an iPhone where, okay, I need a couple of grays because I got to utilize them. And I think most cases is that we're very hostile, generally speaking,
Oh, yeah.
and they're smart, the reptilians or the mantid type or the Nordics. They utilize this small thing because if something happens, this thing and not them. I've heard stories of people biting the grays. One case had somebody rip an arm off, and these things don't seem to be phased in a huge way. So right away you start thinking, well, if these are biological, they're not totally biological. There's got to be some robotic type of influence the creature. So
Interesting.
there's so many questions, but not a lot of answers. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're very secretive. Well, I would label it secretive that they don't want us to, actively don't want us to find out, right?
Mhm.
Do people have negative experiences?
Oh, yes. But it seems to be a smaller percentage of
Right.
people. There's been various studies done, whereas the positive factors have been like around 70% and then negative 25 to 30%,
Mhm.
like that. But it really depends on when you ask the person the question in their process. Because I think without exception, the very initial contact, that's scary as hell. It's very, very negative, very negative. But it seems like after that phase is over, people come to accept the situation and are more comfortable with it. And then in the final phases of it, when it stops, it's almost like the Stockholm syndrome, where how come they're not coming for me anymore? What did I do? What did I do wrong? So, in that regard, that's why I said it earlier that it's a spiritual journey where it's a big shock in the initial phase. And then you come to accept it, look forward to it in even some cases, but then there are the cases where the shock doesn't stop and, it really messes up people's lives. They can't work, their families fall apart because they can't provide, and they can't go to work. I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And so those are the people that probably is suffering from PTSD and, having real psychological issues. And the support group, I tell you, it seems to be one of the best vehicles for people that they understand that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones that are having these situations, and then they can talk openly about their experience and ask questions. And I'm always blown away by the response that when a person does come into the group and right away the feedback starts to happen and people are telling them about what happened to them and this is what they think. And it's a neutral place. We've only had to kick out 2 or 3 people since 1994 out of the group because they got on their high horse and just said, "Hey, this is the only way it can possibly be, and you guys are crazy, blah, 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 blah." And so we don't put up with that. And we monitor the support group. I mean, I monitor it daily, and I have 2 other people that do the same thing. So if we notice that something has gone awry with a particular person or something, then we just basically tell them, "Thanks, but no thanks. We're gonna have to get you out of the group."
Right. I can imagine that some people get very, very invested in this and may take it in a different type of direction. Yeah. Uh,
Mhm.
you mentioned the psychological impact, but what are some of the psychological characteristics, maybe physiological characteristics as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I mean, psychological, I mean, you have a fear, anxiety, fear of specific locations, inappropriate reactions when an individual experiences a picture. Like Whitley Strieber's book, that front cover set off so many people. I mean, it was just crazy how many people that have come into our group that said, I was in a bookstore one day and I was going by this aisle and this book was there and oh my God. And it was like they step back and flashbacks. And that's another thing that happens. They have flashbacks, they have sleep disturbances. So depression, phobias, and of course PTSD. So, but as far as physical, the lost missing time or compressed time where people are taken and they're brought back before it happened.
Oh, yeah. Right. Right. Yes. I've heard.
Yeah, yeah. Or, they've been in an area where all of a sudden the crickets are going crazy and then all of a sudden they stop. Everything stops. It goes total silence. Nosebleeds, unusual marks on the body, puncture marks, triangular marks, dots, surgery marks that heal abnormally fast, scoop marks, implants. Well, one thing about implants, let me just read
Yes,
you.
I wanted to ask about implants.
So Dr. Roger Lear, God rest his soul, who passed away here a number of years ago, did surgery on 17 different people and it took these objects out. And here's the conclusions that he did. And they did a very thorough scientific analysis of these things. No inflammatory rejection reaction by the body to these foreign objects.
Right.
No visible portal of entry.
Mhm.
Collections of specialized nerve endings surrounding the object. An outer coating of ceramic biological material. A metallic phase where inorganic metal becomes biological tissue. The,
Mhm.
the emission of radio waves, which are deep space frequencies in the FM band, electromagnetic fields in excess of 10 milligauss, composition of meteoric iron 66, rare earth metals such as U-236, a single isotope of uranium existing by itself, as well as elements such as uridium, which is very rare and hard to find in an Earth's crust. Non terrestrial isotopic ratios indicating the involved elements did not come from Earth. There you go. There you go. Gold spheres which have unknown function, metallic caverns that are no larger than the diameter of one atom, resistance to ordinary cutting techniques such as metallic sawing or severing with a cutting instrument. One of the specimens had to be cut with a laser. I mean, yeah, so, is this something that the aliens are doing? Is this something that our military, people ask me all the time. I said, are they extraterrestrial? Are they interdimensional? Are they time travelers? Are they the military? Well, I kind of believe it's all the above and
Oh.
anything you could possibly think of.
So when you talk about interdimensional, can you be
Mhm.
like, how does that work? What type of beings would those be?
Typically, they're called light beings.
Uh-huh.
They don't seem to really have a solid body in any way, shape, or form. And so they come in and they manifest in such a way that people always seem to describe them as this figure that you really, it seems to have a shape, but there's no features that you can discern. And their ability, the way they can manifest through anything, anywhere, at any time, seems to indicate that, string theory talks about I think 11, 12, 13 different possibilities of interdimensionality. And so, we have one group being able to traverse one dimension into the other. And through that process, it's basically energy that is manifesting as opposed to physical bodies or anything.
And now I've heard some say that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, may
Mm.
be dimensional, as well as the Kentucky goblins.
Well, I think oftentimes when Sasquatch is seen, there's also sightings of UFOs. And his ability to disappear when people have sighted them and then tried to track them down, nothing, nothing. And so it's very possible that either he isn't interdimensional, but it's also possible that it's a real absolute solid being that's being able to be picked up by a UFO and up through a beam of light, which is very common for people to have that happen to. They always talk about this beam of light coming down, and next thing you know, they're going up into the ship.
Right. Oh, you hear a lot of stories of like that. Now, some things that happen are considered or classified as high strangeness.
Mhm.
What is high strangeness, and what role do you think it has in the alien abduction trope?
Well, I don't know, high strangeness. I mean, all of this is high strangeness. Every aspect of this is high strangeness, no matter what you look at, whether you're talking poltergeist activity, the orbs. Orbs have gone into people's body and healed them. Orbs have gone into people's bodies and made them sick, develop autoimmune diseases and things of that nature. People have had contact and been abducted, and they come back with healing abilities that they've never had before to be able to heal a person. Um, so these are pretty strange things, and psychic abilities, telepathic abilities, being able to communicate. And that's a very common thing that these people that are having these types of experience talk about, that there's no language being exchanged verbally. It's all through the mind, all telepathic communication. And one of the things that we found in also that study that we did, the omega-3 study, is that there was differences in the temporal lobe activity of the experiencers as compared to the control group. And more recently, Gary Nolan from Stanford University and Kit Green came up with the fact that the area between the caudate and the putamen in the brain, there was a lot more connections in that area of these people that had psychic and telepathic abilities. And this was very generational. And that's something to me that is interesting because people ask, well, why is this happening to me? Well, it's happening because it seems like these entities are following
Yeah.
whatever they did eons ago to get us to where we are today. There's an evolutionary process that's going on. And I think that these people that have these psychic and telepathic abilities will eventually be what is here on the planet. And you and I, or certainly me, I don't have that ability. And we're going to die off. We're just going to die off. And then this planet will be inhabited by these people with those kind of capabilities. And they also found that these people with those connections in the caudate putamen area seem to connect with other people that have that same thing going on. So right away, you start to procreate with one another that have that going on in their brains. And so again, it propagates generation after generation. And one of the things I think it was Gary Nolan as well that showed that our planet is supposedly 4.5 billion years old and that our DNA changes every 600,000 years.
Oh,
Well, if you look at where we are now, based on where our DNA is now, this planet would actually have to be a lot older in order for that process to go on naturally. So what he's positing is the fact that somebody tweaked the process eons ago. And so we're a lot farther along, or somebody made a big mistake geologically that this planet is a lot older.
mhm. So you feel like all of these abduction experiences are having to do with our evolution?
Well, I think yes and no. The people that have these capabilities, okay, something is going on. Okay, whether or not that was created by some outward force or it's a natural process that's going on. As far as the hybridization process and people being taken for that's certainly an alien intervention there. That for sure that's going on. So it's kind of both.
Right. I mean, I think none of us really know for sure.
Right.
Right. Oh gosh, this is so fascinating. Now, how many different races have you come into contact with of aliens like in your work?
Yeah, well, the majority of people are either talking about the grays, the short and the tall grays, either the reptilians, the praying mantis type, the Nordics, the tall whites every once in a while, but it's more rare that you hear about that. But then there's all kinds of offshoots because people try to describe what they look like, okay? And it seems that if you talk about the tall grays, and they could come in a lot of different flavors, if you will. You got brown, you got pink, you got blue, and then you have facial structure that's different, which means that this really could be, a whole different group of visitors. And then there's people that have said that there's over 70 different types, or I mean, I've heard as many as 300 at one time. But the one that Linda Howe talks about on her show that supposedly she was privy to was that there was like 3 major types that were involved with this planet, and most of them are good, and there's 1 or 2 that are not so good. They have a totally different agenda, and so the good ones are trying to prevent these bad ones from having any influence on what's going on here, although I wish to hell they would take care of all these crazy wars that are going on. The poor Ukrainians are putting up such a incredible fight against the Russians, and,
Now, Sudan.
I had a thought today for whatever reason because I saw a quick thing about in Sudan. Now they got these 2 factions fighting. They had picture of 2 generals on the opposite sides, both males, of course. What this world would be like if it was all run by women.
Mm,
I
right.
mean, you know, our testosterone gets in the way all the time. It's like, "Oh, no, you can't do that. Oh, I'm not gonna let you do that." It's like, it's crazy. We
We
don't
don't
need to be doing this.
right, exactly, exactly.
You know how much money we could save by not having to have such a huge military and take care of people and things that are more important? Oh my god. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Exactly. It's my belief and hope that we are our pendulum is swinging away from that. So I don't know. Yeah, I totally agree with you 100%. So I've done a research project where trying to find out all of the different type of alien races, and I've found quite
Mhm,
a few and have, using hypnosis, QHHT, gone to the
mhm,
Galactic Federation to their Hall of Records and find
mhm,
out what members are there. And there's, oh yeah, all of the ones that you described, there are several
mm,
different types of reptilians,
mhm.
well as
Yeah.
canines, the felines, the amphibians. I had a client a couple weeks ago who she had seen a penguin type,
Mm.
and that was interesting. And then I've been working with a sketch artist who has compiled a book of different features,
Yeah.
and the shapes, eye types, nose types, to compile composite sketches,
Right.
right? So it's fascinating how many types.
Yeah, matter of fact, in my book, I have a number of, sketches from David Chase, and he put out a pamphlet. It did a great job on all the artwork that he did on that book, and he's listed in there as well. And yeah, hey, this universe is so big. You know, what's to say that there aren't an infinite amount of entities out there in various forms? It's fascinating.
That is fascinating. I'm looking at some of the, oh my goodness. Yeah, some of the images in your book, light language. Yeah, I've seen that. Some
Mhm.
HHT sessions, all of the physical markings. I had a client one time who's an identical twin who's been abducted many times throughout her life, but her twin has not. But this woman has a mark on her arm that is exact shape of a saucer. I think it's to tell them apart. Oh, this is the one we want. That's not the one we want.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. You just made me think of something. One of the support group meetings that we had in San Jose, this person says to me, "I've seen you before." I said, "Oh, really? A UFO conference?" And then, "No, I saw you on board the craft." Oh, that's interesting. And I kind of blew it off, didn't think much of it. It was a year and a half, almost 2 years, I think, later that a totally different person said, "Oh, I've seen you before." And I said, "Really? Where?" Again, the same thing, UFO conference. He said, "No, no, no. You were sitting on this bench naked on board the craft and you were freaking out and they told me to go over to you to calm you down." So at that point, I went and got regressed. I had 3 separate regressions. I had multiple past lives, could not see anything with regard to being on a ship in any way, shape, or form. It was a little while after that that I was talking to somebody and they said, "Well, maybe what this person tapped into was a previous life that you had where you were abducted." Okay? So, I don't have conscious recollection of it, but the latest theory I believe now, because of simply the millions and millions of people that have been taken, that we've all had an experience, whether we consciously recollect it or not, in some way, shape, or form. So,
I wouldn't doubt it at all. Right. I would not doubt that. In fact, this mark, this birthmark on this client looks just like your illustration on page 93 of your book,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
But yes, I fully believe that we've all had our own experiences, whether we recall them or not. And
mhm.
they don't have to be frightening. Many of them
Right, right,
tend to
right.
be more positive.
Yeah, like I say, yeah, the majority of experiences eventually, certainly, we've asked the question, would you want these experiences to stop? And the majority of people say no.
Right.
And so that's good, I guess, better than saying that the majority were negative and they want them to stop because then we have a bigger problem. Not that we don't have a problem, but it's would be a lot bigger problem.
Now, I've also had someone on the podcast who wrote a terrifying encounter. And this is
Mhm,
who had been abducted many times throughout her life and had much high strangeness around her. And this book was Harvest, the true story of alien abduction by my dear friend G.L. Davis. And so that might be the opposite side, that flip side of the coin. But mostly all encounters seem to be overwhelmingly positive.
just like we have here on this planet. We have good people and we have bad people.
Right.
Same thing is going on up there. We've got some good aliens and we got some bad aliens.
Yeah.
And it depends on who you come in contact with for whatever reason. It's hard to just say that because usually there in the past here we've had two major camps. We've had the Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs camp that say they're all negative, they're all bad. And then Dr. Greer says that they're all good. they're all nice people and everything, but I don't buy into either camp. I believe that there's a combination going on. You have good ones and you have bad ones.
Right, and that came out in this research that I've done with QHHT, going
Mhm,
the Galactic Federation and finding out they're good ones and bad ones, but they all have their agendas too. But
mhm,
more often than not, more positive. Fascinating stuff. Now, we're at the end of our time here, or just
mhm.
about. Is there anything that needs to be said that we haven't talked about? Anything that I should have asked that you wish I would have asked?
No, I think we covered all the high points here. Sure, there's more detail that if people wanna really delve into this in a bigger way, they can go to my book that's on Amazon, The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. And if you're a Kindle Prime person, the book is free. The regular Kindle, I think, is like 10 bucks or 9.99, and the paperback version is 20. And all the proceeds go directly to Opus. I don't get anything for the book at all. That's my contribution to the cause, if you will. But yeah, and then don't forget our website. Check it out because I actually do interviews as well. And this coming Wednesday, I'll be interviewing John Ramirez, ex-CIA.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a very interesting conversation. It'll be posted on our YouTube site. And you just go to Opus separate word network on YouTube and you'll see all the interviews I've done, including with Melinda Moulton Howe. And that was like a 2 hour one. That was a thrill ride for me. That was the first one I did for the Opus interview series. And Terry Lovelace, I've interviewed, Steve Bassett, so quite a few people. I think you'd enjoy it. So I think that's pretty much it. So just to thank you so much for having me on the show today. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to a possibility of another one sometime.
I would love that because I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. There's so
Yeah,
much out there, and I think this is fascinating. Okay, one last question.
sure.
Public disclosure, like mass disclosure. I think we're having
Mhm.
a slow roll of disclosure, but do you feel like this is coming anytime soon?
Well, I think that there's more hearings coming up, and the thing that is interesting, it's a desensitization process, which is happening now. The more that the government now is releasing information that the public it's gonna get to the point where, "Oh, yeah. Oh, we already know about that. That's no biggie." It's just one day we're all gonna wake up and say, "Yeah, they're here. No biggie." So, I think it's gonna happen, whether it's not I don't know if it'll happen this year, I don't think so. But certainly maybe next year, year after for sure, I think. Within 2 years, I think it's gonna be pretty
Yeah.
out there.
I think it's gonna be come to a point where people are going, "Okay, just acknowledge it, okay? Just
Mhm.
acknowledge it already."
Yeah.
And yeah, someone had even asked me, "Well, what more do you want?" We've had the TikTok video, we've had, all of these
Mm.
different sightings and the citizens disclosure hearings. I
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, I want more. I want more disclosure." So, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see. Well, again, thank you so much for joining with me today. Yes, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Christy. I really appreciate being here with you.
Don't know what to watch next? Decisions, decisions. Well, we've got some suggestions. You can click this little video here and watch that. It's something that we think you're going to like. If you like the last one, you're going to like that one too. You can also click on the subscribe button. And if you do that, then you'll get notifications whenever we have a new video up. Win win, right?